Prayer is more than just words. It is a deep dive into the soul, an invitation for our longings and fragilities to meet the transformative power of God. And yet there is a constant struggle within us. The flesh resists, the mind gets distracted, and the heart often feels cold. We live in a world where everything is immediate, where waiting is seen as a sign of failure. But prayer doesn't follow that logic. It is slow, silent, an invisible work that transforms the inner being before it changes the outer world. It is a journey that requires surrender, vulnerability, and courage. How many times have you knelt down, but the words didn't come? The heart vulnerability that true transformation begins. Moses knew this. Before challenging Pharaoh, he spent time in the presence of God. Joshua surrounded Jericho with prayer before seeing the walls fall. And David, faced with the temptation to handle things with his own hands, chose to seek strength from the Lord. They were not born with that faith. It was built through daily discipline, through facing their fears, through the persistent, "Yes, Lord, I trust you," even when everything around them screamed the opposite. Do you feel that conflict? The decision to pray seems so simple, but when we try, we are bombarded by distractions, fatigue, and discouragement. Why does this happen? Because the enemy knows the power of prayer. He fears a church on its knees more than a church filled with activities. He does not fear our eloquent sermons, but trembles at a Christian who understands the value of spending time with God. And that's why prayer requires perseverance. We can't wait until we feel like praying. We must force our flesh to submit to the Spirit, because over time, discipline transforms into desire. It's like a muscle that needs to be trained. At first it hurts, but as you persist, you begin to see the strength grow. But what about when nothing happens? That's the question that consumes so many hearts. You pray, cry out, wait, but the silence seems endless. In those moments, doubt whispers, "Does God hear me? Does he care?" It is here that faith must enter. Prayer is not a magic button. It is a surrender, a trust that God is working behind the scenes, even when we don't see it. Think of Abraham, waiting for the promised son. Think of Joseph, imprisoned for years before seeing his dreams fulfilled. Think of Daniel, who prayed faithfully without immediate answers. They all had to learn to wait on God, and in that waiting, they were transformed. Prayer didn't just change their circumstances, it changed their hearts as well. There are times when God doesn't change the situation, but he changes you. He uses the waiting period to refine your faith, strengthen your mind, and prepare you for something greater. What you see as a delay may, in fact, be the perfect plan of God at work. The Apostle Paul knew this. He prayed for God to remove the thorn in his flesh, but the answer was not the relief he expected. God said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. Paul understood that prayer was not just about changing his pain, but about finding strength in God's presence. And you? What have you done in the face of struggles? Often we want to control everything, we want clear answers, but prayer calls us to let go. That's scary. Trusting in God means relinquishing control, facing fears, and admitting that we don't have all the answers. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Jesus, in the Garden of Gethsemane, showed us this. He prayed in agony, asking the Father that, if possible, the cup be taken from him. But in the end, he surrendered to God's will. "Not as I will, but as you will," Matthew 26:39. That is the true challenge of prayer. It's not just about asking, but trusting that God knows what's best, even when we don't understand. This doesn't mean the path will be easy. In fact, the more you pray, the more the challenges seem to increase. This is because prayer confronts what is hidden in us. It brings to light our fears, hurts, and insecurities. But it is in this confrontation that healing happens. If you've been struggling to pray, know that God isn't looking for perfection, but sincerity. He's not waiting for you to find the perfect words. He's waiting for you to open your heart. Maybe your prayers are short. Maybe they come through tears or silences. That's okay. Every attempt to seek God is a step towards transformation. Prayer is not just a religious practice. It is the foundation of a transformed life. It teaches us to love more, forgive faster, and trust more deeply. It shapes our character, aligns our heart with God's, and prepares us to be light in the world. But this doesn't happen passively. It requires effort, consistency, and above all, a heart willing to be transformed. Today, choose to pray. Choose to persist, even when silence seems to be the only answer. God is listening. He is working, even if you don't see it. And as you pray, He's not just changing your circumstances, He's shaping you into the image of Christ. Because in the end, the greatest reward of prayer is not what we receive, but who we become. Sons and daughters deeply rooted in God's love and presence. Prayer is the place where heaven touches earth, where the human heart meets the divine heart. It is in this sacred, intimate space that the barriers surrounding us begin to crumble. But for this to happen, we need to learn to persist, to remain, even when everything in us cries out to give up. The flesh is weak, the mind is restless, but the spirit cries out to God. And it is this cry that cannot be ignored. Imagine for a moment that God is right in front of you, waiting to hear from you. It doesn't matter how broken you feel, how distant you think you are. He is not concerned with the eloquence of your words or the perfection of your behavior. He simply wants you to come. He wants you to draw near, even amid the chaos that dwells in your mind and heart, because in that place, His presence begins to work. Not in an obvious way, not always visible, but deeply, at the roots of who you are. How many times have you felt that your prayers don't go beyond the ceiling? That you speak, cry out, but it seems like nothing moves? Those moments are hard, and many give up in them. They think God is distant, that He has forgotten His promises, but I want you to understand something deeply. God's silence is not His absence. He is working. He is acting in ways that you cannot see. And often, while you pray, He's not just shaping your situation, He's shaping you. Prayer is like a key that opens doors no human force can open. But this key is not magical, it is spiritual. And because of this, its use requires faith. Not faith in quick results or ready answers, but faith in God's character. Faith that He is good, even when life seems cruel. Faith that He is faithful, even when everything seems to be falling apart. David knew this. Before facing Goliath, he had already faced spiritual giants in prayer. He knew the power of God's presence because he spent time with Him. He didn't rely on his own strength, but on the strength of the one who sustained him. And that's what God wants from you, not perfection, but dependence. Not a heart full of answers, but a heart that seeks the one who has all the answers. The greatest challenge in prayer is not the act itself, but the battle against distractions, fatigue, and doubt. How many times have you sat down to pray and suddenly your mind is flooded with thoughts about work, family, bills to pay? This is no coincidence. It's a spiritual battle. Because the enemy knows that if he can distract you, he can prevent you from accessing the power that prayer releases. And even when you persevere, doubt creeps in. That whisper that says, "Does this really work? Is God hearing me?" I want you to know that this doubt is normal, it's human, but it cannot be your anchor. It cannot stop you. Because God is not just listening to your prayers, He is answering them. Maybe not the way you expect, maybe not in the time you would like, but He is acting, always. Prayer is not a monologue, it's a dialogue. And in this dialogue, sometimes God chooses silence. Not because He doesn't care, but because He is working. He is moving pieces you cannot see, preparing paths you cannot imagine. And while He works, He invites you to trust that He is good, even when everything seems to be falling apart, to trust that He has a plan, even when you can't see it. But trusting is not easy. It requires surrender. It requires that you let go of control, that you say, "Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you." That is prayer. Not just beautiful words or desperate pleas, but an act of surrender, a recognition that, without God, we are nothing. When you pray, you align with God's heart. You begin to see things from a different perspective. What seemed unbearable starts to lose its power. What seemed impossible begins to become a possibility. Not because prayer changes God, but because it changes you. It transforms your vision, your heart, your soul. And as you are transformed, the world around you is too. Because a person of prayer is not just someone who talks to God, it is someone who carries God's presence. When you pray, you become a reflection of heaven on earth. You become light in the darkness, hope in the midst of despair. And this, my dear, is the calling of every Christian, to be an instrument in God's hands. But this requires persistence, because prayer is not an event, it's a lifestyle. It's not something you do occasionally, it's something you live, and to live like this you need to commit. You need to decide that no matter how busy you are, no matter how tired you feel, you will make prayer your priority, because it is in God's presence that you find everything you need: peace, wisdom, strength, guidance. Maybe as you read this you're thinking, but I've tried, I've prayed, and nothing has changed. And I want to encourage you not to give up. Because prayer is not about immediate results. It's about relationship. It's about learning to trust God, even when you don't understand what He is doing. It's about continuing to seek, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because the truth is that something is always happening. God is always working. And sooner or later, you will see the fruit of your perseverance. Remember Abraham. Remember Joseph. Remember Daniel. They all faced moments of waiting, moments of doubt, moments of pain, but in the midst of it all, they kept seeking God, and, in His perfect timing, God revealed His faithfulness. He fulfilled His promises. He made the impossible possible. And He will do the same for you, maybe not the way you expect, maybe not in the time you would like, but He will. Because He is faithful, because He loves you, and because He never leaves a prayer unanswered. It may be a yes, it may be a no, it may be a wait, but whatever the answer, it will be the best for you. So today, I challenge you, return to the place of prayer. Return to the place where God is waiting for you, not with perfection, not with answers, but with a willing heart. A heart that says, Lord, I need you. Because in the end, that's what prayer is. Not a ritual, not an obligation, but a pursuit of the one who is the source of everything, the one who is the beginning and the end, the one who is the answer to every question. And when you commit to that pursuit, your life will never be the same. You will be transformed. And through you, the world around you will be transformed too, because prayer is not just a conversation with God, it is a powerful weapon, a weapon that breaks chains, that brings down walls, that brings heaven to earth. So don't give up, don't stop, keep praying, keep seeking, because God is waiting for you, and He has something extraordinary He wants to do in your life. When you decide to pray, even when everything seems empty, something extraordinary begins to happen. God's presence, which once seemed distant, begins to draw near in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. It's not an explosion of emotions or a glorious vision, but a gentle touch, an inexplicable peace that begins to fill your heart. You can't explain it, but you know He's there. And that changes everything. Prayer has never been about manipulating God into doing what we want, but about aligning ourselves with His will. And it's in that alignment that we discover a greater purpose, something that goes beyond our temporary desires. Sometimes we pray asking for a solution to a problem, but God uses that problem to shape us, to teach us something we could never learn otherwise. Not because He delights in our pain, but because He sees beyond it. He knows what He's preparing us for. And if we trust, we will see that every answer, even those that seem difficult, is a reflection of His love. Have you ever stopped to think that God cares more about who you are becoming than what you're going through? He sees the struggles, the pain, the doubts, but he also sees the potential. He sees what he can do in you, through you. And that's why often the answers we seek in prayer don't come the way we expect. Because God is not just solving a problem, he's transforming you. However, this transformation doesn't happen without a struggle. Prayer is a battle, not only against external forces, but against ourselves, against our pride, our impatience, our tendency to want to solve everything on our own. And that's exactly why prayer is so powerful. Because it puts us in a place of humility, of dependence, of surrender. When you kneel to pray, even if your words are confused, even if your heart is full of doubts, God hears. He's not waiting for you to come to him with everything figured out. He doesn't demand a perfection you can't offer. He just wants you to come, to bring your pain, your failures, your questions. And in that act of coming, something miraculous happens. He begins to work. Not only in what's around you, but in what's inside you. Perhaps you're going through a season where everything seems to be falling apart. You look around and can't find a reason to give thanks, a reason to keep going. In these moments, prayer may feel impossible. Words don't come, your heart is too heavy. But it's exactly in these moments that prayer is most needed. Not because you need to convince God to act, but because you need to be reminded of who he is. That he is in control, even when everything seems out of control. When you come before God, even without words, he understands. He reads your tears. He hears the cry of your heart. And he acts, not according to our timing, but in the perfect time. Not the way we expect, but in the way we need. That's faith. Trusting even when you can't see. Continuing even when you don't feel. And that faith is built in prayer. Not in perfect prayers, but in sincere prayers. In those honest conversations with God, where you can be who you really are. Where you can bring your fears, your flaws, your frustrations, without fear of judgment. Because God isn't interested in your performance. He's interested in your heart. Prayer is not about gaining something from God, but about gaining more of God. The more you pray, the more you realize he is enough, that he is the answer to the questions you didn't even know you had, that even if circumstances don't change, you can find peace in his presence. And that peace, my dear, is something the world cannot offer. Have you ever noticed how, after a time of prayer, even if nothing around you has changed, something inside you has changed? Anxiety starts to lose its grip. Anger begins to dissipate. Pain starts to be softened. This is not coincidence. It's the effect of God's presence. It's the impact of connecting with the one who created you, who knows you better than you know yourself. But this requires persistence. Because prayer is not a quick fix, it's a process, it's a journey. And like every journey, it has its ups and downs. There will be days when praying is easy, when you'll feel God's presence so close that it will be impossible not to be moved. But there will also be days when praying feels like a struggle, when every word feels heavy, when you'll wonder if any of this makes sense. And it's on those days that you need to keep going. Not because you feel it, but because you know it, because you trust. This trust is built over time. It's strengthened with every moment you choose to pray, even when you don't want to. With every time you say, "Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you." This is the essence of faith, not seeing but believing, not understanding but trusting. And as you pray, God acts. Maybe not the way you expected, but in a way that is infinitely better, because he sees the big picture. He sees what you can't see. He knows the end from the beginning, and he is working for your good, even when you can't perceive it. So don't give up. Keep praying. Keep seeking, because prayer is not just something you do. It is who you are, a child of God who has direct access to the throne of grace, a child of God who can, at any moment, speak with the Creator of the universe. This is a privilege that cannot be underestimated. And as you pray, remember, you are not alone. God is with you. He is by your side, sustaining you, guiding you, transforming you. And in the end, you will see that it was all worth it, that every tear, every struggle, every moment of doubt was used by God for something greater, for something you still cannot fully understand, but that, one day, will make perfect sense. So today, choose to pray, choose to trust, choose to continue even when it seems impossible, because God is with you. He is listening, and He is working. Don't give up. The answer is on its way, and as you wait, He is shaping you, He is preparing you, He is transforming you. It all starts with prayer, and everything will be revealed in His perfect timing by God's goodness and faithfulness. Prayer is the place where the human heart finds rest, where the burdens we silently carry are surrendered to the One who has all the power to transform. Yet even so, there is a constant resistance within us. It's as if something in our flesh opposes this act that is so simple, yet so profound. Perhaps because prayer exposes us, it lays us bare before God and before ourselves. There are no masks in His presence. Every doubt, every fear, every weakness is laid bare. This can be frightening, but it is also liberating. God is not surprised by what He finds. He already knows you. He knows where it hurts. He knows what worries you. He knows the things you dare not speak to anyone. And yet, He invites you to pray, not so that you can inform Him of your needs, but so that you can learn to trust, so that you can discover that you don't need to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. When you pray, you're not just talking to God, you're handing over at His feet what you cannot control. How many times have you tried to solve everything on your own? How many sleepless nights have you accumulated trying to find a solution to problems that are beyond your reach? And yet, the solution always seems distant. The truth is that as long as we keep trusting in our own strength, we will never experience God's power in its fullness. Prayer is not just an act of faith, it is an act of surrender. It's saying, Lord, I can't, but I know you can. However, we must be honest. Prayer doesn't always bring immediate relief. There are times when you kneel, and when you stand up, the problems are still there. The diagnosis is still the same. The bills are still overdue. The pain still lingers. And it is in that space between the prayer and the answer that our faith is tested. This is where many give up. They look at the situation and think that God isn't listening, but in reality He is working. God works in the unseen. He moves pieces you cannot see. He's arranging events, people, and circumstances so that everything works together for your good. But to experience this, you must trust. You must persist, not just for days or weeks, but for a lifetime. Prayer is not a tool we use only when we need it. It is the air we breathe. It is what keeps us connected to the source of all life. Have you ever noticed that the more you pray, the more peace you feel, even when the circumstances don't change? This peace is a gift from God. It is not something you can produce on your own. It comes directly from Him as a reminder that you are not alone, that He is in control. This peace is what sustained men and women of faith throughout history. Think of Hannah, who prayed with tears for a child. Think of Paul and Silas, who sang praises in prison. Think of Jesus, who prayed in Gethsemane before facing the cross. They didn't pray because it was easy. They prayed because they knew that the only way to get through the storms was to remain connected to the Father. And that's what God wants from you. Not perfection, but persistence. Not strength, but dependence. He wants you to keep coming, even when you don't understand. He wants you to keep trusting, even when everything seems to be going against you, because it is in that place of faith and surrender that miracles happen. But miracles are not always what we expect. Sometimes the greatest miracle is the transformation that happens within us. Maybe God won't change your situation immediately, but He is changing you. He is strengthening you, shaping you, preparing you for something greater. And one day you'll look back and see that He was working all along. So don't give up. Don't let the silence of God lead you to discouragement. He is working, He is listening, He is moving. Your prayer is not in vain. Every word, every tear, every sigh is precious to Him. Nothing escapes His sight. And as you wait, something extraordinary happens. Your faith grows, your perspective changes. What once seemed impossible begins to look small in the face of God's greatness. And little by little, you begin to realize that prayer is not just about changing the world around you, but about being changed from within. This is prayer. It is an encounter with God that transforms. It is a space where the soul finds comfort, where the spirit finds strength, where the heart finds hope. And it is available to you right here and now. No matter how far you think you are, no matter how empty you feel, God is waiting for you. He is with open arms, ready to listen, ready to guide, ready to transform you. But you need to take the first step. You need to choose to pray, even when it's hard, even when it feels useless, because prayer is never useless. It is what sustains, what strengthens, what renews. It is what connects us to the God who can do all things. So today, make a choice. Decide that no matter how busy or tired you are, you will seek God in prayer. Not as a ritual, but as an encounter. Not as an obligation, but as an opportunity to be in the presence of the one who loves you more than you can imagine. And as you pray, remember, God is not distant. He is not indifferent. He is near. He is listening. He is acting. And in due time you will see the fruits of your perseverance. Until then, keep trusting, keep seeking, keep praying. Because in the end, prayer doesn't just change things, it changes you. And that, my dear, is the greatest transformation you can experience. When you understand that prayer is the center, everything in your life begins to realign. Not because the circumstances around you have changed, but because something within you has been realigned. Prayer puts God in the place He deserves, the throne of your heart. It is in that place of surrender that the peace that surpasses all understanding begins to take over. This peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of God in the midst of them. Perhaps, at this moment, you are facing a struggle that seems endless. Perhaps discouragement has settled in because you've been praying for something for so long, but haven't seen any change. This is the point where many give up, believing that God doesn't care or that their prayers don't matter. But I want you to know that every prayer is like a seed. It is planted in the ground, often invisible to the eye, but it is growing, it is taking root. One day, in due time, you will see the fruit. God works in the deep places. He's not only interested in answering what we ask, but in transforming us in the process. He is shaping us, teaching us to trust, to depend, to wait. And while we wait, He is at work. He is aligning heaven with earth. He is putting every detail in place because His plan is perfect. Waiting is where many get lost because it tests our limits. It confronts us with our lack of control, with our tendency to rush the process. But God does not hurry. He does not work on our timetable, but on His, which is always the best. And while we wait, He sustains us. He gives us strength to carry on, even when our feet are tired, even when our soul is weary. You may be asking, but why does it take so long? Why doesn't God just do what I asked now? These are legitimate human questions, but I want you to understand that God is not just interested in solving your problems. He is interested in you. He is more concerned with who you are becoming than with what you are facing. He cares more about your holiness than your comfort. Think of Abraham. God promised him a son, but the promise was not fulfilled immediately. Years passed, years of waiting, of doubts, of questions, but in the end God was faithful. He fulfilled what He had promised. And during that time of waiting, God was preparing Abraham, shaping his character, strengthening his faith. The same is true for you. Your waiting is not a waste. It is a fertile field where God is working, cultivating something extraordinary inside of you. While you wait, God calls you to keep praying, not because He needs to be convinced, but because you need to be strengthened. Prayer is the bridge that keeps us connected to Him, even in the hardest times. It is through prayer that we find the strength to continue, even when everything in us wants to give up. Have you ever noticed how, in moments of greatest despair, a simple prayer can bring a sense of relief, even if it's only temporary? That's because prayer takes us out of the center and puts God in control. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are not abandoned. It reconnects us with the truth that God is with us, fighting our battles, carrying our burdens. And this is what you need to remember today. You are not alone. God is by your side. He sees your tears. He hears your cries. He understands what you cannot express. And He is at work, even when it seems like nothing is happening. He is moving mountains you didn't even know were there. He is making ways you cannot yet see. So keep going. Keep praying even if your words are few. Keep seeking even if your heart is heavy. Keep trusting even if your faith is small. God is not asking for perfection. He is asking for perseverance. He is not demanding that you have all the answers. He is asking that you trust He has them. Prayer is the language of faith. It is how we tell God, I believe in you, even when I don't understand. It is how we place our fears, our hopes, our lives in His hands. And in doing so, we find freedom. We find peace. We find strength. The Apostle Paul knew this. He said, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:6-7. This peace is available to you right now, but you need to seek it. You need to surrender. You need to pray. And as you pray, know that you are not just changing your perspective, you are changing the world around you. Prayer has the power to transform. It breaks chains, knocks down walls, opens doors. It brings heaven to earth. But above all, it draws us closer to God. And that, my dear, is the greatest reward. If there is one thing you should take with you today, it is this. Prayer is the greatest privilege we have. It is not an obligation. It is an opportunity. An opportunity to be in the presence of the Almighty God, to speak with Him, to hear His voice, to be transformed by Him. Do not waste this. Do not take it for granted. Cherish every moment you have to pray, because those moments are shaping your eternity. So now, as you read these words, make a decision. Decide that from today on, prayer will be a priority in your life. Decide that you will not let distractions or discouragement pull you away from God. Decide that no matter what happens, you will keep seeking, keep praying, keep trusting, because God is faithful. He is good, and He has something extraordinary prepared for you. The answer you're waiting for may take time, but it will come. And while you wait, God will be with you, sustaining you, guiding you, transforming you, because in the end, the greatest miracle won't be the answer to your prayer, but the relationship you've built with Him along the way. That's what truly matters. That's what truly transforms. That's what truly satisfies. So keep going. Persevere. Don't stop. God is with you, and He will never, ever fail. Share this blessed video so it can touch and help others just like you and me. Don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being part of our community. I'll leave 2 more videos here so you can continue your spiritual journey and grow in faith. Thank you, and may God bless everyone. See you soon.